We're live, everyone, so give me a second.
There's some noise in the background somewhere, some banging.
I don't know. It's not me.
Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in on the Honest Gabe Report. Tonight we have Doug Bernacki. Doug Bernacki is our special guest. He used to be a former attorney here in Indiana, and then we also have one of our guests that's always on here helping me, Johannes Poulard. And Doug, let's jump right into it. Tell us who you are for our audience, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. I'm Doug Bernacki. I'm a former attorney. I grew up in LaPorte, Indiana. I went to LaPorte High School, to Georgetown for my undergraduate degree, Notre Dame. I was a lawyer for 27 years in Indiana, working out of Michigan City and Granger and South Bend area, as well as Elkhart and Goshen. I had over 20,000 clients in 27 years. And it's nice to see you again, Johannes. As Johannes and I grew up both in LaPorte County, and I knew his dad. His dad actually hired me as a lawyer to be the attorney for the town of Michiana Shores. So
Oh yeah, I've known Doug for ages.
I was the town attorney in Michiana Shores for starting in 1991. For so I know that neck of the woods very well. I'm a Hoosier at heart. I was a LaPorte Slicer. I was a Domer, and I got married at Notre Dame to my wife from Elkhart. We had 4 children. We raised them all in Indiana. I didn't believe in brain drain. I stayed in Indiana to help the people where I grew up and where my roots were. My roots were very deep. So I don't know what else you want. I'm glad to be here because your paper, I have to tell you, that Hoosier Enquirer, you guys won't let me not be here. And so your articles are so accurate, I can't tell you. Everything about my case that you've written is the truth and the facts. And I thank you for that because, the South Bend Tribune, the Northwest Indiana Times, a lot, I think the LaPorte Herald Argus and the News Dispatch were also accurate, but everybody else, Indianapolis Star, they just kind of wrote fake news, and that was before back in 2017 when I was suspended for 1 year from the practice of law. Um, the fake news wasn't even a term yet, and lawfare wasn't a term yet, but lawfare is what I experienced, and I really have moved on in my life. I mean, I don't want to go back. Obviously, you want to go back because you're going through a similar type of persecution right now, Gabe, and I understand that. And, you know, I think the best advice I'd have for you is to be a rock. You got a big dog lifting its leg on you and peeing on you. And in 10 years, that dog will be gone and dead, and you'll still be a rock. So stay strong, my man.
Will do, will do. Yeah, today we have Doug Bernacki. Doug Bernacki used to be an attorney here in Indiana, and we want to talk a little bit about how the judicial system weaponized the commission against him, and they do it against. What I've noticed is they like to do it against attorneys that follow the law, that follow the rules, that follow the ethics. They like what I've noticed with the Judicial Commission and especially the Disciplinary Commission. They love to go after attorneys that they can't get dirt on. And Doug is an honorable attorney. It was a was an honorable attorney at the time, and he still is an honorable man. So Doug, tell us what happened when you ran for judge and when you ran for Congress. I know you ran for a couple offices, and they didn't really like that well.
Well, anyone who runs for Congress, as you know, pretty much has a microscope put up their side, and their background is researched in what's called opposition research. And I ran in a contested primary in 1992. I was 31 years old. Um, and I had no skeletons in my closet. I never had any drinking problems, women problems. I lived a couple miles from a casino, like Pilar there. Didn't have any gambling problems, didn't have any financial problems. Um, so, didn't have any psychological problems. Everything pretty steady in my life. I've been very fortunate until I ran into the Indiana Supreme Court Disciplinary Commission and one what I'd call deranged human being called named G. Michael Whitty, the director of the Indiana Supreme Court Disciplinary Commission. And I mean, your paper reported it so accurately that Aaron Johnson, his prosecutor, his green prosecutor. I mean, this boy was a child, straight uh, IU law school, maybe worked for the housing authority, I think, as a lawyer. But he came after me and he told me I was targeted. I mean, it was like something out of a novel, or I called it Ask, and your reporter reported that, and that's from the book, The Trial, where a man's on trial for doing nothing. I did nothing. I mean, I was a diligent lawyer, honest lawyer, pro bono lawyer for many of my care about money. I had a fortunate career in my 20s as a commodity trader in Chicago. So when I became a lawyer uh, and, and left the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, I wasn't undercapitalized. I was able to practice law without worrying about whether I had to, I never needed to steal from clients or have an imbalance in my checkbook. I had funding. So my family, I think Johannes knows this because we had grocery stores and greenhouses, and nurseries, and my dad was very successful, still alive. My mom's still alive, very successful people. My grandfather was successful, large employers of people. We were deeply rooted in LaPorte County and St. Joe County, Indiana. And so when I ran for Congress, I thought I was doing something good. And boy, I put a target on my back. You step off first base there in Indiana, and I don't know if it's jealous people or, or or I don't know why they chose me to make a show trial out of, but I really have moved on. Given everybody, I mean, it's like, why? I don't need the Indiana Bar Association or the Supreme Court of Indiana to have a happy life. It was a bump in the road. It was a very ugly time. It was a time of complete judicial injustice and judicial travesty in my history. And I think your paper got it accurate and finally told my story. And I appreciate doing that, having me here today. But I'm not here to trash the Supreme Court. I think your article today, the headline was probably a little bit of clickbait, which I respect in this day and age. It said that I was here to blow the whistle on the corruption. Well, you know what? If they weren't corrupt, could they have been that incompetent? If they don't want me to be a little state of Indiana with my educational background, my character, my work ethic, my honesty and diligence and integrity, who the hell do they want to be a cop? I mean, who the hell do they want to be in here in the state? I mean, uh, I'm reminded of the story, and I know I'm monopolizing this here session, but of the minister who in his 12-year-old son's bedroom, he puts a Bible, and then he puts a bottle of whiskey, and he puts a Playboy magazine and a silver dollar, and he says, if he picks up the silver dollar, he'll be a businessman. If he picks up the Bible, he'll be a minister like me. If he takes a shot out of the whiskey bottle, he'll be a no goods drunk. And if he picks up the Playboy, well, he'll be a womanizing loser. So what the boy did, he stood behind the door and watched the kid come in the room, and lo and behold, he picked up all four of them, right? And the father said, "Son of a gun, you're going to be a politician." you know. And I think that pretty much applies for most of the lawyers left there, uh, at least the judges, because those judges seem to get they get shot at strip clubs, and they still have their bench. And I never did anything, and I had some woman I never met take my law license with a bogus complaint, and I didn't get a hearing, which you know that's the due process and equal protection that Indiana doesn't afford anybody. I mean, you said it in your article today. No one should go to law school if this is the standard that they apply to lawyers. If your life is ruined, I mean, I didn't get a gold watch. I didn't get a retirement thing. I got sent out to pasture. I didn't get disbarred. I got suspended for 1 year. But here it is, 8 years later, and I'm still suspended. It might as well have been a death sentence. These guys are they're power crazy. They're not normal. Their government. I mean, who does this for a living? I mean, G. Michael Whitty, Aaron Johnson, Loretta Rush. I mean, they got a judgment day coming, and it's not from me. It's from my partner in life, God.
Well, we're all going to face the terrible judgment.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
fortunately, I feel blessed. I'm blessed.
Well, and you know what, Doug? Here's the thing: is my experience with the judicial system, and I'm not an attorney. I've filed pro se lawsuits, and I've won some, I lost some. Um, but what I've noticed is that they don't care about. They don't want people that are honest, transparency. They want people that have skeletons in their bones. I mean, they want skeletons in people's closets so they can use against them. I've also noticed there is a trend in Indiana where they like people that, let's say that there are judges that are in the closet, right? And they like to use that against the judges. What they don't like is the
That's
judges that are already out of the
oh,
closet too.
it's always been a concern of mine too. Always been a concern of mine that that when people were more in the closet, even that was something that it was held up. I mean, fortunately, you know, I have one wife. I married her at Notre Dame, Indiana, and we have 4 children, and they're all productive, great adults, and I've had a very nice family, and I'm fortunate. But it took hard work. Nothing happens without effort. And
I think the root of all the corruption in Indiana, um, a lot of it has to do with these politicians that one, they're getting paid donations to their campaigns by these lobbyists, just like in D.C. Two, they have what you said, skeletons in their closet that are that make them compromised.
compromise.
Whether it's child trafficking, whether it's prostitution, whether it's some kind of drug habit, whatever it is, something illegal. And three, um, they are addicted to power, and they've been in power for such a long time, and they just don't want to let go.
Well,
I mean,
it seems that way, doesn't it? That, that we're left with the lowest people seeking public service. It's not public service anymore; it's self-service. And
yeah,
a lot of these,
personal
well,
gain.
I mean, when you're seeking reelection, like Loretta Rush did last year, a reappointment, at her age, Mark Massa. I mean, I think you called him a dinosaur today. Did you? I mean, these folks are they're ready to. Why? Why would you want to keep working like that at their age? I mean, have
Money.
they done enough public service, or do they have more self service to look forward to? I mean, there's so many questions that we have, and everyone has lost complete faith in the legal system. Watching what happened to President Trump, watching Hunter Biden get exonerated. Hunter Biden still has his law license, but I don't.
And Hunter Biden was a real pervert too.
I mean, he lived in Long Beach. He was a neighbor in Long Beach. He raised his children there, and he's got some Hoosier connections. His father, when he was vice
I've
president,
heard that.
yeah, he was around. I mean, I went to dinner parties where he was at.
Well, you have
So
to
And
remember. Hold,
was he leading the disgusting lifestyle back then?
my wife and I have asked that question. I mean, certainly, his children were kind of like, what would be the term? Feral, free range. I mean,
no
they
accountability.
were. I mean, I thought they were raising themselves a little bit. They were at everybody else's house but their own.
You know,
Well, it sounds like a typical rich liberal family.
you know what, Johannes? What I've noticed is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but what I've noticed in whether it's in politics, the judicial system, or whatever it is, it seems to be with the standard of holding people accountable from the federal level and the state level. There are rules for thee, but not for me, according to the politicians, and that's what
Yeah,
we have seen
yeah.
year after year after year, decades, centuries. This is how the same process works over and over. And people like
Well,
Doug,
nobody knows.
go ahead.
No, nobody knows what the ethical rules are. I mean, they're incomprehensible and they're so selectively enforced. I
Yep,
mean, 90% of the people who file a disciplinary or file a request for investigation with the disciplinary commission, they get a letter back that says your complaint doesn't rise to the level of significant attorney discipline, and that's
I've got
it.
several of
Signature,
those.
and they don't get any. It's disgusting. It seems like a protection racket for some, but then they make a show trial out of me for a woman who committed perjury on the stand. I mean, she said that she lost her house because of me. I mean, there's no way she lost her house because of me. I represented her for a total of 2 months. She never came to court. She lied to me. She said it's all my fault. I'm sorry. You can withdraw. I got her $8,000 in back child support from her grandson's wife, from her grandson's mother. And then she says, well, you didn't get any money from my son. And the Supreme Court believes her and this crazy complaint that she wrote. And, she's from Kalamazoo, Michigan. She doesn't have the time to come to court to get $8,000, but she
Well,
has.
Kalamazoo is not that far from here. It's like an hour.
But the state of Indiana sent the state trooper up there to get her and bring her back to testify against me. They could spend the government resources, and she could spend all this time trying to ruin my life. She didn't even know me. I never met her until I saw her at a sanctuary. you know, I didn't get a trial on the merits. I didn't get due process. I was put into a General Flynn style trap where, I hate to belabor it because I've moved on. It's so many years ago. And I've forgiven Sharon Brown Perry from Kalamazoo. She was used. Um, she wrote. She didn't write her complaint. It was ghost written for her. I really don't know if I was being set up or framed or whether I was. I can't understand who would do this to me and why anyone would want to take my law license when she didn't. When I got her money and she said she's happy with my results. Later on, she files a complaint. The complaint is reviewed. And she obviously ran out of money a year later, and she says, and they say there's nothing here. This is chicken shit, is what the investigator told me then, and they canceled the complaint. It didn't rise to the level of misconduct because there was no misconduct. I gave her my best efforts despite her negligence, and she should have been barred because it was her responsibility to show up to court. She was even subpoenaed to show up to court, and they didn't put a warrant out for arrest for hold her in contempt because I showed up. And so, if someone doesn't help you do the job, how do you do the job for them? I mean, I'm her agent, and yet somehow I'm responsible for her negligence. No, she's responsible for any
Yeah.
negligence. She's the principal, and so the whole thing was. I always felt like I was set up or framed by Judge Nemeth or his court reporter or some other lawyer or somebody I was suing, or I have no idea who was behind it. They're in the shadows for sure. And the fact of the matter is, um, the lawyer Aaron Johnson from the Indiana prosecutor of the disciplinary commission, he says to me, I don't relish telling you, Mr. Bernanke, but I was hired to put you out of business, or I don't relish telling you drew the short straw that I'm the one that has to put you out of business. And I'm like, put me out of business for what? And like you reported today, And I still to this day don't know why they did it. But their orders say that I misbehaved at court. I didn't show remorse or whatever. But I don't know what the normal reaction is when you're being railroaded by a kangaroo court and rigged justice. I mean, maybe you can comment on that, Gabe, because I think you're pretty much being railroaded in rigged justice yourself.
Well,
And I've been railroaded twice.
Yeah.
Johannes, real quick. Okay? So did you all see about George Santos? Yeah, it was a Friday. Yeah, yesterday, stating that. Okay, so they used that thing where, and you brought up a good point, Doug. They said you didn't show enough remorse, right? That's what the judge said. The federal judge said with George Santos. Now, George Santos, his case is very, very different, but that was also the ultimate judge's decision. He didn't show enough remorse. Well, George Santos, whether some people will agree with him, some people disagree with him. The evidence showed that he, took money from donors and he spent it on his own, and he spent it for his own self. He also used. This is what the federal. This is what the
I
DOJ
think they all
says.
do.
Yeah, but just real quick, the federal government said that George Santos used campaign money for himself. He used donor social security and got credit lines on it. He did a whole bunch of horrible stuff. Is what the DOJ is saying. But
Yeah,
him and his attorney were asking.
identity. He was engaged in identity theft and
Yeah,
to
identity
raise
theft.
money to run it.
Yep, yep. So it's not like he lied. No, he did essentially lie on a piece of paper, but he also committed identity theft and wire fraud and several other things. But he did a plea deal where it was identity theft and wire fraud. But at the end of the day, as the judge said, he didn't show enough remorse. Well, how are you like you said? How are you? I'm not defending George Santos, but how are you supposed to show remorse when you have the weight of the federal government, attacking you? And
Well,
that's sort of
I,
similar to your
I
case
think
because you had the
if,
whole state come after
if
you.
if you did something wrong, it's much easier to take the punishment. You did the crime. I mean, even you put your some information on a paper that's coming back to haunt you. I mean, you're not dangerous to society or the community. You didn't rob anybody. I didn't rob anybody. I didn't do anything. I didn't even put my name on a piece of paper that was you know fraudulent. I did the best I could. So my case is just so full of irregularity. I mean, the way that I was set up with the George with the General Flynn style uh, perjury trap. I mean, they told me they were going to give me a private reprimand, and all I needed to do was sign a piece of paper and fax it back to them. And then they opened a case against me. And I said, "What about the public reprimand, private reprimand?" And they said, "Oh no, you're going to be have to face a sanctioning hearing now." I said, "Well, what about a hearing on the merits?" And they said, "Oh, you don't get a hearing on the merits because you've already signed that piece of paper
Yep.
that said you did it." And I said, "Did what?" I didn't sign any piece of paper that said I did it. I want to maintain a not guilty verdict. Well, you can't. And if you want to, you're committing perjury and we'll arrest you and make a felon out of you. And so, when I went to my
Sounds about right.
deposition, when I went to my deposition in this case, they didn't ask what happened. Well, what are the facts? They said, "Did you sign this piece of paper? Did you agree you did it once?"
Yep.
And I said, and my lawyer saying, I'm telling my lawyer, this is not germane. This is not what this is about. And then they walked out of the room to talk, the two lawyers, but they left behind me a state trooper, and the state trooper says, "You know why I'm here, Mr. Bernacchi?" I said, "No, because I'm not dangerous. I mean, I have four children and a wife and a house and a mortgage and employees that work for me, and I got a business to run. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not causing any trouble. So if you're standing here to think you're gonna arrest me for causing trouble, I'm not interested in causing any trouble ever anywhere or violating any law anytime, any place." And he goes, "No, I'm here to arrest you for committing perjury if you don't answer the question." He didn't say truthfully. He said, "If you don't answer the question right." So they don't even care about the truth. The facts don't
Oh no, they don't.
matter. When the government has become worse than China, worse than communist CCP and worse than Russia. I mean, it's absurd. But I'm not in Indiana anymore. I'm in Connecticut. I live in a great part of the world, Fairfield County, Connecticut. It's probably one of the richest places in the country. And I used to be a poverty lawyer in Indiana, helping people when they needed help the most. And if they don't want the help, I don't know who's helping my former clients now, but they're all calling me. They all miss me. They're all confused. They all know me as a good person. I mean, I had 20,000 clients when I ran for judge. I got 47,000 votes. And that's a lot of votes in North St. Joe County.
And for your first
That's
time running for
probably
judge too, it was your first
that,
time running for
that
judge.
that's that's probably 10 times more votes than Mayor Pete got for mayor of South Bend.
I can't
Okay,
even
but I
pronounce his
ran in the.
last name. I call him Buttigieg,
You mean
whatever the hell
like
it's called.
Pablo Pete?
Well,
What?
it's very easy to remember that guy's name because you just think you're down in Florida on spring break and you're having a wet T-shirt contest and he's the booty judge.
Oh gosh, no.
Actually, my former campaign chairman calls him Pete Butt Plug.
Oh no.
Oh God, yeah, I worse ones, and I've even said some worse ones. But well, I be judged someday on what I say and do, and I'm content with you know if humor is the best medicine. I've never taken any medications or needed any medications. Very fortunate that I can laugh about it today, and the jokes on them. Someone said I'm here to. You said I'm coming on to scorch the earth or something with the cord or blow the whistle on corruption. Well, they've exposed their own corruption. They wrote an order full of lies that I lost someone's house. That if you go back and look at the court records, and the real estate records that are recorded in the county recorder's office in Kalamazoo County, I didn't lose this lady's house. She lost her house about, I don't
Two
know, was
years.
a
Two
year and a
years
half
before the
before.
complaint even was
Year,
initiated.
yeah, even in her own testimony in court, and then she contradicts herself under oath and says, I lost my house. I shared it with my grandson. And the court repeated that over and over again.
Oh,
Grandson was like 18 years old by the time the court hearing took place, 17 and a half when I represented her. I mean, she had met, this case had gone on for years. She had several lawyers. Most of them she filed bankruptcy on before. I didn't know that. She
Oh
never
my
paid them. She
goodness.
never paid me. She never paid me. I had no receipt. No, she had no receipt, no canceled check, no nothing that she ever paid me. And they said, "Oh, she paid your paralegal." She never paid my paralegal. That's a
Imagine.
lie. They never let my paralegal testify because he would have testified under oath. No one ever paid him ever. All he ever did was research, and he worked on 1% of my client files. That guy's name was Mario Sims, Reverend Mario Sims,
Mario
and
Sims is a very good man.
yeah, the only time I had Mario help me out doing research is when I couldn't get a Notre Dame law student because they were taking finals or they were on summer break, and I needed some research done. And so I would call up his paralegal service. And you know who gave me his number? Judge Catalpa in Elkhart, Indiana. He
You know
was
what's
doing
crazy
research
is
for a judge.
you know what's crazy
He
is
did,
Doug.
he did research for all kinds of lawyers, and I'm the only lawyer they prosecuted for hiring. And they prosecuted me for hiring him on
I
a
know. That's what I was
contract
about to
when he
say.
was when he was not an employee of mine. Now, now I have the right to contract. I
Yeah.
contracted law students all the time, paid them to do research for me, but I can't contract him. And that because he wasn't a paralegal employed in my office with a W-2. I mean, they had to clarify that later. They changed the law. What they prosecuted for me was legal. It was they even clarified. Did they clear my name? No, they destroyed my reputation, and I don't know why, but you know what? God will punish them more than, and they have to look in the mirror and look at themselves every day. What they
Exactly.
did was so criminal. It's got to be corrupt
You
or
know,
incompetent.
here's all I gotta say is imagine if that happened to one of their own people. Imagine if that happened to Loretta Rush. One she worked on a
Or
case
her,
several
or her,
years
or
ago. Go
or
ahead,
one
Doug.
of her four or one of her four children. I mean, what is my mother to think of this? I mean, what kind of reaction does my mother have in the courtroom? I mean, my mother said I would have shot those people in the face, and she's 90 years old. You know.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But the thing was it, Doug. The thing was is that the establishment had an agenda, and the agenda was to come after you. People can disagree or agree with it, but if you look at the evidence at the end of the day, is people hired Mario Sims. Mario Sims is well known that he does paralegal work for numerous attorneys and people. He's on payroll and other people. So the thing was, it was never about that. It was to make you look bad, and it was to start a witch hunt. Hold on.
It was it's about smearing my name, tying it to his name because he was a convicted felon. They couldn't convict me of any crime because I didn't do any crime. They couldn't convict me of any ethics violation because I didn't do any ethics violation. So they entrapped me with this trick of saying that I already pled guilty and putting me in a perjury trap.
Oh, they're
You know,
good at entrapping
Oh
people.
yeah, they
well
are.
that
They
that
are.
perjury trap denied me due process. It was prosecutorial misconduct.
Yep.
There are many acts of prosecutorial misconduct. Filing amended complaint in my case, adding more counts, was prosecutorial misconduct. They even reached out to the story of where um, I think you wrote about it today. I told you about this girl Barbara Major who called down there to complain about her lawyer in Valparaiso. And Barbara Major, when the receptionist heard her mention that she had Doug Bernacchi as her lawyer in Michigan City before, and that she wanted me now, but I wouldn't take her case, and so she hired this lawyer in Valpo, and she was having trouble with her case. That that she the receptionist put her right through to Aaron Johnson, and Aaron Johnson, because Barbara Major was black and he was black, he tried to convince her that I was a racist, and this is 2015, 16, 15, somewhere back.
Oh, they like to do that too. They like to play the race card.
Oh, I know. And they said he tried to suborn her perjury. Now that's a crime. I mean, and this guy is still a lawyer. He's still practicing law in Indiana for the disciplinary commission, and he tried to frame me by adding another complaint because
Uh-huh.
there would be a whole bunch of complaints if I was a bad lawyer over 27 years. At
Hey,
hey,
Doug.
how you doing, Dr.
How are
Pilar?
you, Doug?
How are you doing,
Good to
Dr.
see you.
Pillard?
All right.
Nice to
Nice
see you.
seeing you.
I'll see you this summer, maybe. I'll come by.
All right.
I know I'll make it back to Long Beach in the summer months because I have my mother's birthday to come back for.
Oh,
But
nice.
in any event, I was saying that this perjury trap that they put me in was just dirty pool. I mean, law shouldn't be about trickery, and I didn't get a hearing on the merits. They couldn't approve the case. There were no facts, so they made it so that they didn't need facts. And then the only damage was she lost this house. Well, I didn't cause her to lose this house, and so she had no damages. So even if there was error, it would have been harmless error, and I shouldn't have been punished. But you know, my hearing officer gave me 6 months with a path to reinstatement, saying that the path was that I would have to go through psychological testing. Well, I practiced law 27 years. I never had seen a psychiatrist, never took a pill, never took a drug. I mean, there was no testimony about psychological maladies or abnormalities or I studied psychology. I mean, I'm pretty versed on the whole range of possible ailments, and I don't have you know proclivities for any of them. So I think that, but the fact is, they were giving me 6 months reinstatement. Now I got 1 year. For some reason, the Supreme Court upped the ante and made it 1 year without reinstatement. It's been almost 8 years later. I've never been reinstated. I can't even try to get reinstated. They keep threatening me. They tell me that they'll bring other cases against me, and those are just as bogus as Sharon Brown Perry's. So, I mean, what do you do? I moved on with my life 5 years ago, God gave me other challenges to deal with, and I dealt with them, and I'm a happy person, and I'm sure they're not happy. They're working in civil service. They might as well be in purgatory, waiting to go to hell. God knows that's where they'll end up.
Oh yeah,
Well, I'll tell you,
absolutely.
with my case, I would not be surprised if this bogus DUI
Yeah, you.
pinned me on had something to do with the fact that I was a candidate for Indiana State Senate, um, and I've heard from several people. I made Senator Pohl very uncomfortable just being in the primary, and for the first time running for any kind of public office, I had over 20% of the vote in the primary, which is very good for a first time candidate. I mean, it's very rare a first time candidate gets that much of the vote.
They don't want you to run twice because you got a good chance of winning the second time.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm even more determined to run now.
Yeah, you should. I mean, if good people sit idly by, then and then the criminals and the bad people, they win. And
And I think we really need to revamp the entire policing system in Indiana. I think we need to have police chiefs and the first lieutenants who are the second in command. They need to be elected by the public, just like
well,
the county sheriff.
there is a citizen review board, I think you were stopped in Porter County. I mean, why don't you talk to the membership of the citizen review board, because that's separate from the prosecutor. I mean, I'm not giving you legal advice, but it's governmental agency that they oversee. You didn't even drink anything. How could they arrest you for DUI? You
I
know.
mean, yeah, I blew 000 twice.
Yeah.
Once at the police station, and I had to blow through the breathalyzer to be eligible to post bail at the county jail.
They take you to the police station and they take their time because blood alcohol goes up over time. So they pick you up and someone's been drinking, their blood alcohol is here. By the time they get them to the police station, their alcohol is raised to an illegal level. And like someone always said, if you had a shot in a beer and you jump in your car and you go straight home, you'd probably be fine. But if you wait a half hour, it starts to hit you. And, alcohol goes up and up and up and up, and then it drops off pretty fast. And
And
you
what is really strange, and even Scott Paycheck's paralegal thought this was strange.
Yeah.
One of the cops at the police station said I should plead not
Page
guilty.
representing you?
Yes,
That's my former law partner. That's a good choice.
I think I went to high school with him.
Yeah. He went to Marquette.
Yeah,
He played basketball against Delray Brooks, former Indiana Mr. Basketball, former star at
I think
Providence.
he was either a freshman or a sophomore when I was a senior.
Yeah, I had
And
told.
he's Orthodox. He's good. Serbian stock, good Slavic Orthodox stock. So I
So,
should be okay
Johannes,
with a name like Lazar,
Johannes.
named
So,
after a great saint.
His family was deeply rooted in LaPorte County like mine. His dad
Yeah.
started the medical group of Michigan City. His mother was Ivy Tech and ran Children and Family Services and was on the Madison Center administrator for LaPorte County. I mean, his family is deeply rooted. His older brother delivered Shaquille O'Neal's child out in L.A. when
Oh, really?
he was a young doctor. I remember hearing that story. But yeah, no, these are fine people. Like my family, they're fine people. I mean, I grew up in that produce business, and we worked hard. At 8 years old, I was out in the field after school, and in the springtime and all summer long, we worked. We had a good work ethic, and Ajax. I mean, he used to tell me stories about his dad making him go out and pull weeds and do yard work, and from a young age, and that was because his dad went through the depression, right? His dad was he was a saver. Anyway, you had a question, Gabe?
yeah, it wasn't really so much a question, but I remember Johannes was telling me whenever he got what was it called? Detained and sent to the and they were encouraging him to go to the police station. And I had told him, I said, well, you did nothing wrong, and under Indiana law, It states that if you're in a an offender bender, you just pull over, and there wasn't even $1,000 worth of damages, and nobody died. So police
There was
involvement
no
didn't even
damage
be
at
in.
all. I mean,
Exactly, exactly.
and
And
and I
what?
met the woman of the other car, and had
Right.
that cop not even shown up, we would have exchanged our license and
Mhm.
insurance information, and we would have both been about our way.
Exactly. And what the
And
cop did was totally illegal. He broke several laws, and this is just it's just absurd. And I told Johannes, I said, Johannes, I would have never got into that police car at all. I would have told him Indiana law states that if it's over $1,000 in damages, and if somebody was killed or hurt, then you would, by law, you would have to. But nothing even happened like that. And so, yeah, and then the officers told him that they were
Did
detaining him afterwards.
I don't know the story here. Did they arrest him and make him
Yeah,
bond out?
yeah,
yeah,
they,
I mean,
yeah.
I think he's
they
got
read
a.
they read me my Miranda rights at the police station,
Several
What?
like
and
hours later.
I
and
don't care about
when
Miranda.
when he started reading the Miranda rights, I asked him, "Are you putting me under arrest?" And he goes, "No, we're just detaining you
They
for a little
lied to
bit."
him.
So last I checked,
Yeah.
when they read you your Miranda rights, they're putting you under arrest.
Well,
Exactly.
I don't even think they have to do that anymore. Myself, I don't. I'm not a criminal lawyer. That's why Pajic handled all that in my. You know, I taught criminal procedure, and and I kind of remember what it was, but you have to do the research on every case, every law, every time. So, I mean, right now, Miranda rights don't be that important. You can't get if they don't read them to you. I know you can't get off anymore. But you have false arrest. I mean, it sounds like to me they had no reason to arrest you if you blew the 0.0. There's no damage to any human or
Oh,
car.
and then they had me take a blood test, and they took me to the hospital.
Did you get the
And get
results?
this, you read the police report at the end there.
Yeah.
Uh, the battery of the body cam conveniently dies while he's at the hospital in his car, and the phlebotomist at the hospital, her name was Savannah Self, and she, I guess, gave the vials back to the police officer.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
that's chain of
if
custody.
if they put something in there, I'm going to make some noise.
I mean, if they framed you or did something to you wrong like that, I mean, the system is worse than, like I said.
And the hospital is
I
aware of it, because I talked with the Franciscan risk management team.
well, when I ran for Congress, they came after me afterwards and wanted $40,000 fines, and 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 they said I didn't. I didn't send in reports timely and stuff. Well, I hired a CPA to do all the bookkeeping for me, which is something different than. I mean, mine was a $200,000 race in a primary, and we had real money, real we had a CPA do all the bookkeeping, and he followed all the rules, and he responded to their false accusations, and he had all the proof, he had all the facts, receipts, and I mean, I was just lucky that because I mean, 9 times out of 10, people wouldn't have that stuff. You lose a race, you're kind of sad about it. You wouldn't have the paperwork, and then 6 months later, 5 months later, they start coming after you and harassing you. And the message I got from all that was, don't run for Congress again. So I didn't.
Yeah.
They're there to protect the incumbents. The Federal Election Commission, you know, they protect the incumbents. Tim Romer was the incumbent. His father-in-law was Senator J. Bennett Johnson, a Democrat
Oh,
from
that's right. We were in Congressional District 2 at the time, weren't we?
we were in three at that time in Indiana. Three,
Three?
three. Yeah, but the J. Bennett Johnson was a senator, a Democrat from from Louisiana, and when he ran for re-election, George Herbert Walker Bush, the sitting president, actually went to Louisiana and campaigned for him as a Democrat against the Republican. So that's how much dirt he had on somebody, or how much power J. Bennett Johnson had. I mean, it was that doesn't happen very often, does
Well,
it?
George Herbert Walker Bush was not a trustworthy person anyway. I mean, his big speech about the New World Order after the Soviet Union fell. Um,
Read my lips. I mean,
yeah,
Okay, in any event, history bears out the truth, and I'm all about the truth. My case, truthfully, was a bad deal, falsification of reality, and and I don't expect them to apologize. Gabe, you think they're ever going to apologize to me?
Not a day in hell will they ever.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to apologize to any of us, but
hell
No, they
freezes
won't.
over. Hell freezes
I'll tell
over
you what.
for
Once I get
people.
acquitted from this DUI,
Yeah.
I'm not going to make the mistake like I did after Bobby Sikowski arrested me and hire a lawyer out of Porter County. I want to get somebody from the Indianapolis area, and I'm going to sue the hell out of these bastards.
Well, you have that your dad's friend that who won a pretty good case against the state, and she's got connections with civil rights lawyers in Indiana in
Are you talking
Washington
about
D.C.
Susie?
Yeah,
Susie Talevsky, yeah.
yeah, you should get a referral from her to her
I'm
lawyers
going
in
to talk to her about it. She
Washington.
Definitely
knows
talk
I'm
to
planning to
Susie.
sue.
Definitely
But
talk to Susie.
I was
She's,
just
she's a,
talking with her today, as a matter of fact,
she
about all the nursing home abuse that I'm going to write an article about for the Hoosier Enquirer.
yeah.
What were you saying,
Nursing
Doug?
nursing home abuse is something that Indiana is far behind on
Oh yes.
Indiana, when I was young, Indiana was, they had the legislative poison pill. They had a lot of things that they were winning the race at the bottom, drawing corporate work and things. And now, you know, I mean, Gabe, I saw a draft of an article that Claire asked me about my family background, and I don't know if you're going to publish that, but a lot of the people that are part of my family that weren't born and raised in Indiana like me came here to be in business. And I say here, but I'm sitting in Connecticut right now. But my heart's still back in Indiana. It's broken. My heart is really broken. And Indiana's not on the front edge. I hope that Governor Braun fixes some of this stuff. I know that Governor Holcomb was kind of, I thought, on the team, as Loretta Rush says, he was on her team,
Yep.
and when you have checks and balances in government, you shouldn't be on a team. I mean,
Well, Governor
I think
Holcomb was World Economic Forum,
yeah,
Club of Rome.
he was China's favorite governor, all that.
Yeah, he was a piece of
Civil
shit,
War.
pardon
He
my
was a bad
French.
governor.
Well, I think what Braun needs to do in my case is file a writ of mandamus asking them how they can punish me for something that was legal, like contracting Mario Sims. How they can punish me for someone having no damages other than losing their house, and where it's impossible for me to have had anything to do with her losing her house, and why that isn't perjury, state-sponsored perjury, and why when they went to investigate that perjury from Lake County because the sheriff there and the prosecutor knew that was a lie because the paperwork is clear that it's a lie. And yet, Michael Whitty obstructed justice and stopped them from investigating his his subordinates' use of state-sponsored perjury to hang me. I mean, you used the word today. It's a high-tech lynching. You know, these courts, lawfare must stop. I
Oh
mean,
It
yeah.
has to
Oh
stop.
yeah. And
It's atrocious. It
here,
has to stop.
here's
And
the
you
thing
know,
is, you guys. Okay, so they like to use the documents and paperwork and perjury against us, and they literally did like Doug said they did a high tech lynching on him over a bogus thing. And what happened was that what they do is they like to do what's it called, the bait and switch, or the switch and bait, or whatever it's called. I think it's called bait and switch, which basically they charge you with one thing, and then towards the end they switch it out and they make a whole completely new argument to charge you with because their original thing is not working. That's what
yep.
that's what they did with me. They told me that that I needed to go to jail because I disagreed with the judge here in Marion County. That's their argument. That is their final. They're saying I need to spend 6 months in jail because I disagreed with an attorney here in the local courts. That has nothing to
And they
do
did this.
with my case
They did this
whatsoever.
also with Infowars host Owen Schroyer because
They
they
got him
didn't
on
like.
perjury too.
Yeah,
you know,
they
you know,
didn't like that he said that the 2020 elections were rigged, and he was on probation, and they said, well, you got to spend 2 months in federal prison, and they sent him to Louisiana, And then I guess several Republican congressmen, Thomas Massey was one of them, that raised a lot of hell and got him out earlier.
Good, because it's
Well,
ridiculous what they do.
they love to fill the prisons and the criminal justice system with people who aren't dangerous, who won't shoot them in the face, and they leave the people who will shoot them in the face alone. You know, so I mean, it used to be that the government fought the mafia. Today, the government is the
It
mafia.
is.
It is the
It's a
mafia.
cabal. It's a cabal.
It is,
I would
and
say, I would even
You know,
go out and say publicly that the federal government and the state government is worse than MS-13. They make MS-13 look like kindergartens. Okay, what the federal government does is so insane and absurd. They should a lot of them should be arrested and charged. They lie, they steal, they sex
well, that
trafficking, they
might
do
be
all these
coming, Gabe.
things,
That
and
might be
there's no
coming. It's going to take
accountability
time.
whatsoever.
they arrested the judge last week, so we'll see. But the thing that I wanted to get back to here is that um, when I said they're the mafia, this prosecutor, G. Michael Whitty, I was told by another lawyer who was also Italian. I'm only half Italian. Mom's not Italian. She's Polish. Being from a poor county in Michigan City area, right? And her dad was Wysocki, and so but I'm half Polish, half Italian, but my surname's Italian. So, but another Italian lawyer said that G. Michael Whitty, he was the first Asian judge, first Asian this, whatever. They're all DEI. These people that are
Yeah.
for
Hmm.
our world.
Oh, by the way, coming
He,
to that, I don't know if you heard this, Gabe. I when I got on Facebook this morning, I looked at Michigan City Uncensoredish, and Governor Brown has gone to the General Assembly to try and introduce a bill to ban discrimination against whites. I've got a feeling Mayor Angie is going to love that because she loves to discriminate against whites.
well,
She's giving my former campaign chairman hell with his
I heard it.
contracting business.
I heard in Michigan City, like people are quitting working at the water department, the street department. People aren't quitting their jobs because they don't want to work for her. Or she
Oh
doesn't.
yeah, I call her I call her Lori Dykefoot's little sister
It's funny. That's funny. Or
Yeah, I'm not
because
gonna lie. She
you
sort of
mean
looks like
you
it.
she
mean
looks like a dolled
you
up
you
Lori Dykefoot, but she has a
you mean
white husband.
you mean Lori Lightweight? Lori
Lori
Lightweight.
Lightweight.
Okay.
A friend of mine that was at worked at the nursing home where my mother was when she passed away. His name is also Scott Skarupa. He always called her Lori Dykefoot, so that kind of stuck.
That
Oh
was
man.
okay. I don't know. You interrupted me and I lost my train of thought there, but that's okay. Your story was good about Michigan City, and I'm glad to be brought up to date a little bit. The the guy, the G. Michael Whitty, first Asian, the DEI judge, whatever. He didn't like Italians, is what I was told, and he thought that all Italian lawyers were descendants of the mob, and we didn't deserve to be lawyers. So maybe that's why I got targeted. I really don't know who was behind it or why, but my family was not part of the mob. We used to grow produce, drive it into Chicago every night to the produce markets. And the buyers in Chicago, the produce market, they drive out to our house in the big Cadillacs to my grandfather's house. And I asked my grandfather, they got to be mobsters. They control the whole produce industry in Chicagoland, and we're selling to them. How come you're not part of the mob, or are you part of the mafia? And he said, this was during the Godfather times, movie times. And he said, I never needed to borrow their money. So, I mean, we farmed a lot of acres, thousands of acres with 500 workers in the fields and all kinds of cash crops going to Chicago
Yeah.
for supplying the suppliers of the restaurants, And
Well, you know how the mafia got away with everything they did. They would bribe the police in Chicago, and we had a neighbor, Ed McNichols,
yeah,
who was a
we,
Chicago. He was a retired Chicago police officer, and he would always tell us the story about Al Capone would give him a crisp $5 bill every week, and he would do this to a lot of Chicago police officers.
We had a lot of
So in Chicago, he was untouchable.
police officers with second homes out in our area there, and we also had a lot of the mobsters living along the shore of Lake Michigan. Remember, there's that one house that looks like a Luger. It was owned by Lucky Luciano, right? He had his mistress.
I thought that was Al Capone's sister's house.
Well, maybe that was who his mistress was. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I know. There was a girl that went to Marquette that lived in that house, Mary Battle.
Yeah, I just
She was smoking
I
hot too.
I all those folks that were involved with that kind of stuff in Chicago all changed their names. Like my name's
And
Bernard.
Dr. Haupt's house,
Yeah,
that was built for Rica the Wager de Lucia,
yeah. I mean,
designed by John Lloyd Wright, the son of Frank Lloyd Wright.
but after the generations, these people have changed their last names, so they're not connected to. They don't even have Italian surnames, but they were part of that era in Chicago. The prohibition
Yeah, yeah.
money
And you
making.
know the funny thing is one of Dr. Haupt's sons, when I started working for Dr. Haupt, when I had my landscaping business.
I don't want to get sued here, so we got to keep this. We
Yes,
don't want to
Johannes,
slam.
No,
yes.
no, no. But I remember one of Dr. Haupt's sons, Craig, he had told me that when Dr. Haupt grew up in Long Beach, and he remembers the house being owned by the mafia, and that the guards would give him candy all the time. But and so when it was up for sale, Dr. Haupt wanted to buy it, and he ended up buying it, and he actually had to go to the prison where Jimmy Hoffa was to sign the deed because the house was actually owned by Jimmy Hoffa for a while.
Well,
Interesting.
I was involved with local government in that part of the world, right, in Long Beach. And some of the houses, we had a couple different building commissioners, and they always dealt with me as town attorney. So some of the houses had steel beams in the basement, and they used to use a wood beam.
Yeah.
And now today, big houses, they use steel beams. We got these houses in Indiana that have steel beams. Well, it's not because we had the steel industry there. These beams, these beams say like City of Chicago on them. I mean, these beams were part of like bridges over the Chicago River when they were building them. People stole the steel beams to build their lake house, to brace up the floor of lake houses.
That's
And
funny.
so there was plenty of corruption back in the day that
Yeah, and there from what I hear, there's a tunnel network there too, and even Dr. Haupt's basement, there's something that looked like an opening to the tunnel. From what I understand, the tunnels went to the beach, and they would have boats coming from Canada down Lake Michigan with all the contraband, the liquor from Canada during the Prohibition.
So, I didn't do anything. I never was involved in anything like that. No
Neither was I. I
drugs.
wasn't even
No.
born.
No,
And here I don't have a law license, and Hunter Biden does. It makes
yeah,
no sense.
It's a club, and we're not invited, like Carlin said. George Carlin said.
Yeah,
So
remind me of that because I kind of remember what you're talking about. But George Carlin said what?
it's a club, and we're
it's
not
a
invited.
big club, and we're not invited.
Oh, well, somebody once said I don't want to be in any club that will have me, right? So maybe that's where I'm at. I took the bar in Illinois, passed it the first time. Took the Indiana bar, passed it the first time. I got good grades. I did the research. I never went into court unprepared, except for this time where Sharon Brown Perry set me up and didn't come to court and lied to me and told me facts weren't factual. I mean, I just really felt like I was railroaded. So,
Yeah.
but she was used. You know, they reopened the case without new evidence. I don't know how they do that. If they have new evidence, you can open a case. But once you've closed the case, isn't it res judicata? Isn't it, you know, a fide accompli? It's done. You can't.
Yeah, isn't there
Well,
double jeopardy and stuff?
well,
No,
doesn't doesn't
only
dismiss with prejudice or dismiss without prejudice make
yeah.
it dismiss
Well,
case?
only lawyers don't have. Only lawyers in Indiana don't have the rights of criminals. If you're accused of an ethical violation, you don't have the right to reinstate your guilty plea. You don't have the benefits of the code of criminal procedure. You don't get the code of civil procedure. All you get is this. ethical rule written by the American Bar Association, and I propose things to fix it, and it falls on deaf ears because nobody should ever lose their law license based on the testimony of someone who never met them.
Well, and
I
here the other thing
Sharon
is
Brown Pierce never met me.
the
She
other
shouldn't
thing
be able
is
to do
that
that to me.
the other thing is, Doug, you can't even take the commission to go to court because they have so many connections, and also is you know they
Look,
triumph
they're
everyone.
powerful.
Yeah, they are. They're a
They
cabal. They're a
they they
cabal.
can they can take any lawyers, or now they're combined as judges. I mean, you wrote an article about the that Adrian I read in your paper. I don't know her last, Adrian Myring, but she has
Adrian
two
Mearing.
state. Yeah, she has two state jobs now. I mean,
That
I
violates
don't
state
understand.
law. Current state law says
Have you
employees cannot. Yeah, I checked it out, verified it. She can't have two
have you
jobs.
asked have you asked the state to release her income to you so you can see if her income doubled when she added the second job?
I
Or is she
actually
doing
did.
two jobs, one for free?
I actually did
You
submit
did?
it, and we're still waiting for a response. But knowing how the state of Indiana works, they'll probably not give it to me, and then
Well,
I'll take them to court. Blah blah
they'll put
blah.
you in jail before you ever get it. So
Yeah, they
I
will.
hope you
They
like.
sure will.
I hope I
Yeah.
hope I hope you like.
Well, the Hoosier Enquirer asked for the body cam footage of my arrest twice, and they won't fork it over. And
Yeah, Michigan
their
City
excuse
Police.
is the investigation is still pending.
Michigan Police even I had one of our reporters reach out to them, and I even reached out to them, and they said,
Well,
"Nope, we're not giving the body cam to you." And they told the editor in chief, "Nope, we're not giving it to you." So you know what? So it is what it is at this point. So
so we're supposed to do this Sunday night, and you moved it to Saturday. Saturday. Why? What's the reason for that again? Because you're afraid that they're going to revoke your IR before, because you thought I was going to say something really bombshellish against with facts that would you know unravel the whole justice system. I don't want to do that. I've moved on. I think these folks have made their own bed. They lied, and they've done people dirty, and that's not on me. That's on them. I just want to move on with my.
yeah,
Hopefully someday I'll get my law license back in Indiana. I was a lawyer in Illinois. I was a lawyer in Utah. Those states gave me reciprocal discipline. Illinois said what they did to you in Indiana was chicken shit. We're not going to do anything to you. Move here and practice law. So I moved to Chicago. I started practicing law, and they brought a disciplinary complaint
yep.
against me. I sat out 1 year there. I applied to reinstate in Illinois, and then I got a case, picked up a new case in Utah where I wasn't even a lawyer. I wasn't practicing lawyer. Utah had no interest in me. They couldn't say they're protecting the public from me. I hadn't been to Utah in over 20, 15 years. So,
Michigan also did
you
the
know,
same thing as well too. You didn't
yeah,
practice in
well,
Michigan; they went after you too.
Michigan just trashed me on the internet, and
Oh,
I
I
didn't
know.
practice in Michigan.
Yeah,
You know,
Michigan, just terrible.
and all these
Well,
cases.
yeah. Well, Michigan. Who's the governor in Michigan?
Whitmer.
Gretchen Whit.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
Witless Whitmer.
uh,
Or I have some Cutco customers in Grand Rapids.
Oh no.
He's a judge, and she went to high school with Whitmer. They call her Stretch and Gretchen
I already knew where you're going with this.
because, I mean, when she went to high school in Grand Rapids, she literally slept with the whole city, male and female.
too much
So
too much information.
in high school, she was known as Stretch and Gretchen because of that.
I remember you telling this last time. Yep, yep. So, um, basically, to sum it up, is I just don't understand why Utah and Michigan would come after Doug. This is how powerful the state of Indiana, and it doesn't matter, just not just the state of Indiana. This is how powerful state government is. If they're friends in other states and they want to attack an attorney, they will do it. And Doug Bernanke is a prime example. I would say he is the poster boy of the weaponization of the Judicial Commission, right?
Well,
My what I
they
what
did. They certainly did lawfare me before they did it to Trump. I mean, they've been testing these types of cases for decades, and I mean, they didn't want me to become a judge because I would have been an honest judge,
yeah.
and they had
Oh
necessarily.
yeah, they can't have that.
No,
I
they
mean,
can't.
I don't think politics enter the courtroom, and unfortunately, it does in St. Joe County a lot. So, I also there was a relationship between uh, the like you said in one of your articles, all of the justices are from Indiana Supreme Court, and I was running from Indiana University Law Schools, and I was running against John Broden, who was a state senator. Now, I wouldn't have run for judge, but the seat was open. The incumbent uh, went to the federal bench as a magistrate, so there was an open seat, and I ran and I called and congratulated John Broden the day he won. I didn't run any race against him. I didn't spend any money. The South Bend Tribune was trashing me. I still got all those votes, and I was gracious enough to call him and say congratulations. If you ever need anything from me, let me know. And try to reaching out. And he never called me back. Never responded. Didn't answer his phone on a few attempts on election night. So, you know, these folks know that they're dirty. They know what that did to me and why they did it. And I hope they're happy with their measly um, Indiana state salaries while living in the Gold Coast of Connecticut, inside New York City.
Well, this is the thing that really boggles my mind. Okay, I mean, I remember growing up. I remember my dad was building commissioner for a while. He was on the town council. He was on the BZA. I mean, you know as well as I do how involved he was.
Your dad got a Sagamore of the Wabash. Your
Yeah,
dad
he did.
legit, yeah.
And but
PhD.
basically, I remember growing up. Okay, even though my dad disagreed with a lot of the Democrats in town, we were still civil. And people would come to our block parties. We used to call them the Leo parties. And we would have them around my dad's birthday, which is in August. And either they came because they loved my mother's cooking, or but then in 1999 we had that trash come from Chicago, Ian Steele and lying Lyle Lout and
I remember when they raised a lot of ruckus. They thought that
about the firehouse.
they thought the locals were doing stuff behind their back and raising their taxes. But their taxes are low. The town of Michiana Shores has some of the lowest taxes in the state of Indiana, has some of the lowest budgets. I mean, you rent your town hall for $1 a year for the next 100 years from the fire department. I mean, your dad made a 10-year plan there with the help of a couple other people, and I was around then, but I can't say I did anything but help carry it out. And that plan took Michiana Shores from being a town that was going to be bankrupt for sure or unincorporated, and made it one of the most prosperous, low cost, low tax, and highest property values in the state. I mean, you got went from being, if you lower the taxes on house, property values go up,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and you guys have a beach. And how nice is it to have a beach?
Well, most of our beaches in Michigan, but
Yeah, but the beach, you have deeded beach rights to Michigan now, and
we do. Yeah.
what that creative thinking to make beach rights across the state line for the people in this. You know, this is why your dad got a Sagamore of the Wabash, really, and to spin the fire department off, and to subcontract the police department. And I remember one of my big cases in Michiana Shores was against the EPA. The EPA was trying to find the town $6 million for a Superfund dump cleanup site, and Michiana Shores didn't have $6 million, to pay that.
When did
Pay that.
that happen?
I don't know, but they made me town attorney for life and gave me the keys to the town, and
I
they had.
remember that. I think that happened in '96, around the same time that
Yeah.
my dad made Michiana Shores the sister town to Brienne-sur-Aisne in France.
Yeah, and they came over, and
They did.
they got the keys to the city too as well when they came to visit. But yeah, I was made town attorney for life, which is not really something they can do because the town council can only bind the for the extent of their term, with 4 years something. So I couldn't uh, I couldn't claim that I should still be their lawyer, but I saved them a lot of money, and I think Michigan Shores paid me a $300 monthly retainer. Right? I mean, it was a labor of love, which I couldn't have done if I hadn't had a successful, you know, prosperous career in Chicago as a commodity trader when I was young. I think the last thing I want to talk about is my contribution to the legacy of Senator Lugar, because I was the one in Indiana who told him that Gorbachev was going to abdicate tomorrow back in August of 1991, and I needed his help and the federal government's help to address who had their finger on the nuclear button. I was studying foreign relations at Georgetown, and when I heard that Gorbachev was going to abdicate, and I was in Chicago in the markets, and the markets were crazy volatile, the most volatile day since the '87 stock market crash in August of '91, and nobody knew why. Except, why is there so much money changing hands? Why is there so much volatility? And I looked at the patterns, and it was all money leaving Russia, going into England and the United States. And what's going on in Russia? Well, Gorbachev was going to face the coup,
Yeah, there was a coup, a failed coup attempt led by Gennady Yanayev.
well, everybody knew what was going on in the world, but our State Department and our intelligence community in Washington, D.C., because when I told Senator Lugar, he was at a fundraiser, and I was a committed enough citizen that I went out, father of four. I was worried about the future of my children, and I went out to, as well as myself and everybody else in the world. I went 2.5 hours from Chicago to Elkhart that day. I was the last one in the greeting line. And when I said that to him, he said, "What'd you say?" And I repeated myself, and it said at 2 o'clock on the BBC Newswire, they reported Gorbachev's abdicating tomorrow. And I wonder what the federal government's response is to that. And he got all of his entourage around, and they got on their bag phones and their big brick cell phones, and after a few telephone calls, one of the heads of this fundraiser went up to the front of the crowd and said, "You're welcome to help yourself to the food and hors d'oeuvres, and we're going to open the bar up for next half hour, and drinks are free. If you want your money back, come see me. But the senator is not going to be able to address you. He's been called back to Washington on official business." And apparently, I learned later that on the way back, he called Senator Nunn, who played golf with the see, I'm getting off track because I talk about the Supreme Court of Indiana or attorney discipline, just like the last time you cornered me on this stuff. Um, uh, Gabe, I talked about Bobby Knight and John Thompson in a basketball story. But this is a good story because uh, Lugar called Nunn, and Nunn had played golf at Congressional Country Club with the ambassador of the Soviet Union on whenever they could.
Jack Matlock, yeah, was the ambassador then.
Lugar knew that, so they met at Senator Nunn's office, and they came up with this idea to bring paratroopers in and take control of the GPS coordinates supplied by the Gorbachev government with their permission. And I even saw uh, George Herbert Walker Bush speaking a few years later and being asked about that at an international conference at the University of Chicago symposium. And he said, there was a day in August of 1991 when a couple of senators thought they were the commander in chief, and they kept me up all night until I agreed to send out our paratroopers, from Virginia. So they went and they basically kept control of those weapons. Now, Senator Lugar told me after that the hard work began because they had to convince Congress to pay for the destruction of those weapons, and they actually brought them to the United States and took them out to Utah and dismantled them and destroyed them in the Utah desert. So, that's what Lugar Nunn did, and Senator Lugar got a Presidential Medal of Honor from Obama when Obama learned of it. I believe it might be all classified. Lugar said someday they'll make a movie about you, son. Well, I knew Senator Lugar because I was a senatorial intern. I worked in Senator Lugar's office when Mitch Daniels in 1979 was his administrative assistant. So
My dad knew Senator Lugar too.
here's my history. I'm a good student, a good guy, involved in all aspects of civil life and contributing. No history of mental illness or crimes or deceitfulness or dishonesty, and yet they attacked me, and it's wrong, and they have to know it's wrong, and the public knows it's wrong. My clients know it's wrong. My family, my parents. I mean, I was an altar boy, and they treated me like at 58 years old, I somehow changed my stripes and became an unethical lawyer when I didn't need to be. When I was living in a 6,000 square foot house, my kids were through college.
Well, that's what the government will do. They will turn nice people
Yep.
and make them into public enemy number one.
And that kind of deceitfulness has eroded the confidence that we all have in our justice system and public officials, our government. I mean, you wrote an article about how this kind of erodes the fabric of society, and they have no one to blame but themselves. I'm not dropping any bombshells on them. I'm not a fact. I'm not criticizing them. They've done enough damage to themselves that they should be reaching out to me and apologizing. But and I know they don't have the kahunas or the backbone, the spine. They don't have the sense of justice to do what's just.
Exactly.
Yeah, as another Italian, Gerald Salente, would say, their cojones are smaller than a mothball.
Yeah, they are. If you look, how I look at it in days, if you can't look in the mirror and laugh at yourself, if you can't admit you're wrong, then you don't deserve any type of credibility. You don't even deserve the time of day. I know Doug, I know you and me and Johannes can admit when we're wrong. I know we can apologize when we're wrong.
Yeah.
I know that you know, we have more integrity than those people do. So that's why when Judgment Day comes, SOL on them. That's all I
Yep.
have to say for them because they have to pay the piper like everyone else. We all have Judgment Day with God, and you know what?
And when the terrible judgment comes, and Christ is on the judgment seat, no attorney's going to be there to defend them.
No,
Exactly.
no bar association, no,
No.
no line of wet noodles to back them up and give them strength. I mean, this system is broken, and they know it. Rather than fix it, they're in it for self service, not public service, and it's shameful. Really, it's very 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 shameful, and you know. I don't pray that there's a God. I know there's a God. I have faith, and I don't need to. I could pick up tin cans to survive if I had to, right? I mean, in Connecticut, they're 10 cents a piece, so you get a dollar pretty quick.
Yeah.
Michigan too.
So, but Doug, we appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Johannes, do you have any last questions for Doug before we end it?
Well, I hope you have a bright career as an optometrist. Um,
Well, I'm studying right now, and I'm learning that the AI is probably going to put optometrists out of business. And I don't know that I have the youth on my side to become an ophthalmologist. So my first stop is optician. So I will be an optician a year from now.
so you basically make spectacles then, right?
Well, I made the glasses I have on.
Oh, you
Oh, that's
did.
nice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. But you're also have something else going on in Connecticut.
Well, I'm working as a real estate agent,
Okay.
and
A
and
jack of all trades.
no, I'm grandpa. I'm a grandpa.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I get to pass on my what I consider tremendous knowledge and experience my grandchildren. But my dad says, at approaching 90 years old, he said, "You don't want perspective because when you have perspective, you die." And
I will remember that.
I think that's a pretty profound statement.
I will
So,
remember that. I'll take note of that. That's that's something. Well, thank you, Doug, for coming on tonight. Coming on tonight for the show, and for our viewers and followers. Go ahead, Doug. Go
thank
ahead.
you for picking up my case and realizing that it doesn't make sense. It makes no sense at all. I mean, and the people that I represented have been confused by it, and they've lost faith in government. They lost faith in Loretta Rush for one, and they don't understand why she's doing what she's doing to other lawyers and myself. And there's a shortage of lawyers in Northern Indiana,
Oh yeah.
and who's to blame for it? It's almost like they create
Mhm.
problems in government so they can be heroes and solve them.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like,
Yep. Well, what's crazy? I'll just be brief on this, but they're talking about there's legislation that Loretta Rush is wanting to pass is that they want to make paralegals become lawyers and help pick up the case. But then, on the other side note, then they're destroying honest attorneys like yourself and other people, and then they allow attorneys to arrest people, work with the prosecutor, and lie under oath. They got a lot of problems here, and they're going to continue having that. They continue down this road, which they
And
will.
another thing is, uh, the Republican Party is divided in Indiana. I mean, you got the real patriots, the MAGA Republicans like me and Gabe are, and then you got the rhinos like Holcomb, like Wesco.
Yeah,
That's the
Timothy
guy
Wesco. Yeah,
Stephen
Timothy
Gray was
Wesco's.
running
Oh
against.
gosh, he's terrible.
He's a little turd basket. I mean,
where does Todd Rokita show up in this? Because Todd Rokita seems
oh, they're
like,
going after him now too again.
yeah, and he seemed like he was part of the club, the Rhino Club.
Well, you know what?
They
Here's my. I'll give you my honest opinion about Todd Rokita. I like him. He's a good fighter, but he plays along, and he's probably hearing this, and that's all right. I respect Todd. I respect him a lot. But one of the things I say about Todd's very good. He's very very good at walking the line. And when Curtis Hill and Todd knows my views on this. I supported Curtis Hill when he ran for re-election, and what they did was a train wreck to Curtis Hill. Curtis Hill
I,
is a
I knew Curtis Hill most of my life and never had you know,
I will
don't have a
never
bad.
I'll never say anything bad about
He's
Curtis
from
Hill.
Elkhart, isn't he?
But but to sum it up is But to sum it up is
Yeah.
the commission did not like Curtis Hill and neither did Holcomb. They thought that Holcomb they thought not Holcomb, but the commission and Holcomb thought Hill. Go ahead, go ahead.
Holcomb would have been defeated by Curtis Hill if they ever faced head to head.
That's what I was about to say. So 2024 is they no 2020 they thought that Hill was going to run for governor against Holcomb, and that's what started it because Hill got more votes than the president in 2016. He got more votes than any statewide office, so that's why they had to take him out. That's why in 2018 they launched that stuff, and I actually know he's a good friend of mine. He was there at the bar that night with the when Curtis Hill was with those was with those women. So they tried to spin a story out of control, and that's what happened. And I know Curtis Hill.
Well,
Curtis Hill
I
didn't do
thought they
anything.
set him
Now,
up because
now hold on, Johannes. Hold on. Let me just be brief about this because the show's coming to an end. But to sum it all up is Rakita. They liked Rakita because they knew Rakita could win. That is why they propped Rakita up. And then when Rakita started bucking the system a little bit, they said, "How dare you buck us? Because we are the ones that put you in there." And that is exactly why Rakita is seeing what's happening with Rakita right now is because Rakita wanted to have his cake and eat it at the same time as, and the commission was not going to allow that because the commission reminded him, we are the ones that ousted him out and put you in there, and if you dare come after us, we're going to come after you, and that's why they continue to go after him as much as they
Well,
do.
I, I have a little different perspective on Todd because I campaigned with him and walked parade routes with him, carrying signs with his name on it and stuff, and helped him.
Yeah.
And when I needed him to help me, uh, because I was being falsely accused, he did. He blocked me, defriended me, and I think it's just a little karma coming back. I mean,
Yeah.
what they did, they're doing to him. So he could have cared. He
Yeah,
could
no,
have
and, and,
literally
and and I
cared.
agree with that, Doug. I really do because I've seen Todd Rikita in act, and I've seen him care, and I've seen the ruthless side of him. So I've seen a lot of sides of Todd Rikita, and yes, there's times where he could have been helpful, and there's times he should have been more helpful. But I've also seen him be helpful towards protecting Hoosiers when stuff isn't right, and so the bottom line is that I've seen Rakita's very good at walking the line on both sides, and he's receiving unfortunately he's receiving the same treatment like Curtis Hill got, and
You
so
know,
that
you know,
I'll
you
leave it at
know,
that.
who else lied to my face was the governor, Pence. Mike Pence said,
Oh, Pence was a traitor.
no. Mike Pence said to me, "They won't do that to you, Doug. I won't let it happen." And then he went and joined the Trump. They did it to me, and I wish he hadn't even said anything at all.
It's
And then
better
he
not to
said,
say anything than to say anything sometimes.
he could have said this. He said, I have an appointment to the Supreme Court right now, and he appointed Jeffrey Goff, and he said, I'll make sure that my appointment is aware of the situation. He didn't say I'll obstruct justice or I will make sure it doesn't happen, but he said I'll make sure he's aware of the situation. Well, what Jeffrey Goff did in my case is recuse himself. He recused.
Oh,
Interesting.
I mean, instead of fixing it, he just did what Rokita did. He just basically blocked me. So I never met him. I never talked to him, but I'll never forget. I'll never
well,
forget.
I'll say this about Rakita. I mean, I met him at the gala. He had a gala dinner when he unrolled his parental bill of rights.
That was
Rhonda
nice. It
Miller
was
was
nice.
there. Senator Jim Tomes was there. And
Jim
Gabe, you
Tomes is
know
a very
Senator
good
Jim.
senator. Shout out to Senator Jim Tomes. Very good senator.
Oh, he's a great guy, and I
Rarest of
love
them
the
all.
way he talks. I had my picture taken with him. Everybody was wearing this "Don't Mandate on Me" T-shirt that had the Gaston flag. It was a yellow T-shirt with the
Yep.
rattlesnake, like you have on the but
Yep.
instead of "Don't Tread on Me," it would say. And I asked where I could find that shirt. And then I went up to Todd Rikita and I asked him, why he wants to pick a fight with Susie Talevsky over the nursing homes. He goes, "Oh, by the way, I hear you wanted this shirt." And then he takes the "Don't Mandate on Me" shirt that he was wearing, takes it off, and hands it to me.
Oh,
And I
that's
still
nice.
have that shirt.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll say this. Susie did a good job representing her client, and I'll give respect where respect's given. She did one hell of a job giving the state of Indiana a fight, man. And you know what? You know what? And I think Todd Rikita, I know Todd Rikita really, really respects Susie because of that. Because at the end of the day, is you have to
Oh, I'm
fight for
sure he
what is
does.
right. And you know what? Todd Rikita, and Todd Rikita's job is to defend the state, whether or not we like it or not. He's going to be in some controversial bills that we like or not. And so he had to
Yeah.
defend the state on that. And so Susie did a good job, and she took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And I told her that. I said, "You did a very, very good job. Very." She did.
It,
She did.
I'm gonna say this about Susie. Is there a nicer person? No. I mean, I know all the
Oh,
lawyers.
she's a sweetheart.
I know all the lawyers in Northern Indiana. All the lawyers were always very honest. I mean, extremely honest. They didn't lie. Their word was their bond. You didn't have to get a fax, an email. If they said something, they stuck to it. I mean, it was a very good situation when I was working as a lawyer. Until I ran into these lawyers in Indianapolis from the state,
There's scumbags down here.
all of a sudden everything's unethical, lying, deceitful,
Yep.
no trust. I mean, the night and day difference between the northern counties and Marion
How
and
do you think I feel from southern Indiana to up here? It's so
yeah,
corrupt up here. It's like night and
even
day, like you said.
even when I had stuff down in Evansville, I mean those lawyers were so kind,
Yeah.
so thoughtful, And people worked
Well,
together.
Evansville's the South. That's a whole different cat down there.
Yeah, but where I'm not really a big fan by the Cincinnati area.
Oh
You know
yeah.
that place where Aaron Egengart was the Republican chairman and G. Michael Whitty was a judge. I mean, this guy got 1,500 votes. Took my law license. Now he's been appointed a senior judge by Loretta Rush, and they appoint these people as senior judge so he can't get sued. He's got immunity.
Yep.
All the things that he did wrong along the way will never be exposed
Oh,
because
that
you know
reminds me. You reminded me something, Doug.
Oh,
Okay,
never say
so
never.
hold on, Johannes. Hold on. So real quick is I was reading the article where they changed the names of G. Michael Whitty and what's that guy's name? Arnold Narnold. You just said it.
oh Negengard,
Yeah,
yeah,
Negengard. Yeah, Negengard. They were in. So I was reading the article about how they apparently were arrested in Nevada, and the paper had to change it. They literally said that that the names that I just listed that they reported that were arrested. Um, they literally said that, oh no, those are different people, and I thought that was weird.
different people with the same name.
Yes, yes. How convenient is that? The paper really contracted that. I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you should investigate that with your paper.
Oh, we
I mean,
are, we are, we are. I thought that was interesting.
yeah, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, and
Yeah.
fortunately, there's so smoky around Indianapolis, I can't breathe if I go there.
Oh yeah, it's a swamp, all right. That's very for sure. And I've seen them in action. I've seen them in action, Republicans and Democrats in action, and there's a lot of fakeness up here.
Thank you for having me on again. I don't mean any ill will to anybody, but I certainly wish that people would have enough character. They talk about character, and they don't have enough character or fit, sir. They can't admit they made a mistake. I said I was a commodity trader, a futures trader. Say I'll buy them or I'll sell them. 50% of the time you lose money. You're wrong. So you didn't make that decision to buy them or sell them without a lot of thought. So I mean, if you think about court cases, probably 50% of the time, roll of the dice, judges are wrong, and there has to be some ability to correct errors or to reconsider. It's amazing how many mistakes go unaddressed in our legal system,
Yeah.
and it's got it needs reform. I mean, I have a lot of ideas to reform it, but you know, Mike Pence told me this once: if you're out for a walk and there's nobody following you, you're just out for a walk. If you're out for a walk and there's people following you, then you're a leader. And my ideas for judicial reform, I'm pretty much just out for a walk on,
Yeah,
because nobody, they want to keep their power, they want to keep their intimidation, they want to keep every lawyer afraid of being a victim of a show trial. I'm going to say to those lawyers, don't be afraid, because their power is a perception, not real. God's power is real.
exactly.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Amen. Well, thank you,
Well,
Doug,
one
for
thing I'd like to add about Curtis Hill, um, didn't one of the reasons why that he got suspended, wasn't it because he called Eric Holcomb out when he had that executive order about the mask mandate? Because he wanted the original executive order was violators would be charged with a Class A misdemeanor, and it would be like a $1,500 fine and a year in jail.
Johannes, that was they started that in 2018. That's when they started it. They started going after Curtis Hill in 2018. But
Oh, so they've been
Uh,
after him longer
a
than
lot of
that.
factors were in that.
I,
But to sum everything up is we're at the deadline right now. So thank you, Doug, for
I want to say one. I want to say one quick thing. It was no surprise how fast Governor Ho Hum, as I call him, came out and called for Curtis Hill to resign.
Yep.
I mean, it was clear that the fix was in on Curtis.
Yeah.
Yep, it was fixed in. The fix was in a long, long time ago. So, maybe on the next show we'll have time to talk about that. But thank you, Doug, for coming on tonight and telling your story, and what else? Coming on, telling your story, and talking about what changes need to be done, And Johannes, thank you for coming on as well as a co-host and talking to
Great,
Doug.
great to see
Thank you
both.
so
Great to
much.
see you. And
Yeah, it's great to see you, Doug. We haven't seen each other for ages.
yeah, and Gabe, I'm done. Thank you for hounding me to be here, but I'm done.
No problem. Thank you, you guys, so much. You guys have a great, wonderful weekend.
Doug, you should come